Welcome, everyone, to Health for Life Cooking. This is the Healing Power of Plant Foods cooking class, and I'm April, and I'm so glad that you decided to venture out of your warm, cozy homes tonight in the rain. And well, it's not raining so much anymore, but I'm just really happy to have you here tonight. I'm excited to teach you about the healing power of plant foods. I have discovered over the last, 30 years about nutrition and about how important these plant foods are in reversing disease and increasing longevity and helping you to maintain and achieve and maintain your ideal weight and to keep you from getting diseases and even reverse disease if you've got it. And I've just learned the power in these foods and how important they are and including them into your diet. Just a little bit about me. I come from a standard American family, eating the standard American diet, and pretty much everyone in my family has gotten the standard American diseases. And heart disease, diabetes, both my parents died of cancer. I've got kidney failure in my family, an uncle that went on dialysis and suffered many years from that. And as I was watching this as I was growing up, I just thought, I knew deep down inside that there was something else that I could do to change what many would say is my genetic destiny. I didn't want to go through what I saw my family going through, and I wanted to do something different. And I thought that was going to be exercise, and so I really got heavily into exercise and loved it, and discovered that I could pretty much eat what I wanted, as long as it was fairly healthy and as much as I wanted, as long as I exercised every day. Eventually, though, that caught up with me, and I started feeling not so good. My energy was low, my skin was dry. I was kind of going on and off diets. I was eating fat-free diets and, becoming a little bit obsessed with food that way. And over time, I just thought, I was so consumed with my body weight and food and things like that I thought there's got to be a better way. We're not made to come here and be so obsessed about all this stuff. And anyway, just stumbled on some books and learned about plant-based nutrition and changed from a very healthy standard American diet. I was eating whole wheat bread and low-fat dairy and no-fat this and no-fat that and skinless chicken and fish and all those kind of things, but I was still feeling so lousy. And so I went from that kind of a diet to a whole food plant-based, 100% vegan, as they say. And within about a week, I felt amazing. I felt so much better. My energy levels skyrocketed. My skin just wasn't so dry anymore. My hair stopped falling out. I had so much energy, and I never looked back. I thought, man, this is the greatest thing ever. And as I started telling people about it and what I was doing, they were kind of like, oh, that's terrible. I don't want to do that. And nobody wanted to hear my story. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start teaching some classes, because I knew I had met a friend and she wanted to teach. And so we got together and started teaching through Dixie College Community Education, and had 4 or 5 people in those classes on a regular basis, and that was really fun. But over the years, I've just wanted to venture out, and I kind of started cooking classes on my own, and I did some classes for the Kitchen Corner in St. George, for the Bosch Kitchen Center, and I work for the Bridge Recovery Center now, which is a place that brings in people from all over the world that have chronic illnesses, and we teach them how to eat healthy foods. And that's what I'm here tonight to do, to help you to learn about the healing power in these foods. I'm going to talk a little bit about the foods and what they can do for us, and show you that it actually can be tasty to eat healthy. People think healthy food doesn't taste good, but healthy food can taste good. I love food. I love eating. I like to eat a lot, and I don't want to feel guilty after I eat. And there is no guilt. There's no deprivation with plant-based cooking. It's all really wonderful. And hopefully after tonight's class, you'll get a little feel for that, and you'll be excited to take it a step further wherever you're at. That's what I tell people. Wherever you're at with your nutrition, just kick it up a notch and make it just a little bit better. So tonight, we're going to do some lentil patties, some mushroom lentil patties with a gravy. And I'm going to throw in another recipe for you. It's creamy cauliflower soup. And that recipe is not on your recipe sheet. I was going to do the citrus balsamic dressing that's on there, I believe. And when it was raining and cold, I'm like, oh, it's not a salad night, it's a soup night. And I felt like I had a little more time and that I'd be able to do the soup. It's much more exciting than the salad. The salad's a little bit, I was thinking, okay, to plate 40 things of salad is going to take a lot of time. So the soup will be so much easier, and it's really tasty too. So, and then we're going to do some carrot cake with a with a creamy frosting. So hopefully you'll love that. So we'll just go ahead and just jump right in. I've already got my lentils cooked. Are you guys all familiar with lentils? Beans, peas, and lentils, they're all legumes. And they are the main food of the blue zones. And I know you guys are learning about blue zones, or those that are interested in that kind of thing. The 5 populations in the world that live to be over 100. They have the most centenarians. And their common diet pattern is a plant-based diet. And the main food that they all eat is beans. That's their main source of protein. I say beans, the magical food. The more you eat, the healthier you're going to be. People, you thought I was going to say something else. People that have, studies show that people that eat 2 cups of beans a week have half the risk of colon cancer. Imagine if we were to eat them every single day. We would probably totally drop our risk. A few things about beans: they're high in folate. You want to get folate, not folic acid in a supplement. You want to eat folate in foods, in plant foods. Folate is in plant foods. They're high in fiber. We want to eat lots of fiber to move cholesterol and other fats and harmful compounds out of the body. I tell people you got to take out the trash at least once a day, and fiber is going to help you do that. They're a good source of phytates, and some people say phytates are bad. Phytates are good. Phytates are anti-cancer compounds. They're low in calorie. They have beneficial fats. Protein, they're 20 to 37% protein. If you don't get anything out of this class, I want you to realize that it's easy. We don't have to worry about protein. We're so obsessed with protein. You know, we got to have our protein powders, and we got to make sure we get, you know, these high protein diets. We don't have to worry about protein. There's a handout over there. It's green. I hope you picked one up. It shows all your plant sources of protein, and you'll be surprised at how much protein is in lettuce, you know, for instance, or even fruits. Every food on the planet has protein. What we want technically is amino acids, and they're all foods. Amino acids come from the ground, and so all foods have amino acids, and those amino acids are changed into proteins in our body. So, but beans are a great source of protein. They decrease your desire for sweets. They promote a sensation of fullness and satiety. They stabilize blood sugar. They increase fat burning and decrease fat storage after a meal. They have powerful anti-cancer benefits. They're the best source of carbohydrates. So if you're, you know, thinking about, oh, I can't eat grains, grains are really good for you, but beans are better. Beans are higher up on the nutrient density scale. So anyway, lentils are going to be the base of these patties, and then we're going to put in some potato, and the potato is going to kind of help to hold these together. So I'm just going to grab my little grater here. You can use any kind of grater you've got. This is a Salad Master grater. I've had it for many years. And I'm just using a russet potato. You can use red potatoes or a white potato. Just something that's got some starch in it, because like I said, that starch is going to help this potato hold together better. All right, and then we're going to add, let's see, I'm going to move that over here. Add a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, and you can use any kind of balsamic vinegar you like. I like the Kirkland brand that Costco has. So we're just going to add a tablespoon of that. And then 1 cup of chopped mushrooms. Mushrooms have powerful anti-cancer compounds. One particular study showed that women who ate just 1 button mushroom a day cut their risk of breast cancer by 64%. That's huge, huge, huge. Mushrooms have anti-angiogenic properties. Angiogenesis is when our body builds new blood vessels to feed growth. Okay, when we're our age, I think all of us in this room are fully grown, we don't need to grow any new cells. But when we have a cancer growing in our body, that cancer cell wants to grow. And if we're feeding it growth-stimulating foods, it's going to grow, it's going to branch out new blood vessels. Mushrooms stop that, stop those blood vessels from spreading. They have aromatase inhibitors. Cancer patients take drugs that have aromatase inhibitors in them. If we were to eat mushrooms, we would get those aromatase inhibitors from them. All right, then we're going to add, let's see, we're going to do a couple cloves of garlic. Speaking of anti-cancer compounds, garlic's really high in them as well. All your allium vegetables, your onion, leek, scallions, shallots. What else is there? Garlic. I get a lot of my nutrition information from a website, nutritionfacts.org. It's Dr. Michael Greger. He's a researcher, medical doctor that has dedicated his life to getting the research out about the nutrition science that's out there in the medical journals. That's all he does. Reads medical journals all day long. Puts the information out in video format, 3 to 5 minute little short videos, and he talks about foods and cancer and shows that garlic is one of those that hits every cancer out there and stops tumor growth. And we have cancer cells going all through, throughout our body all the time. If we have a strong immune system, our immune system will get rid of them, and the foods help to get rid of them as well, like our garlic and mushrooms and green leafy vegetables, which we're not having tonight. You guys will have to go home and have a salad later or something. Okay, so we're going to throw in these 2 cloves of garlic. And then we're going to do a teaspoon of thyme and a teaspoon of onion powder. And then we're going to go with a tablespoon of Kirkland no salt seasoning. This is just a no salt seasoning that I get at Costco. You can use a Mrs. Dash. They have a, Mrs. Dash has all kinds of flavors, onion and garlic. They have a Southwest Chipotle. They've got, I don't know, they've got like 10 or 12 different kinds. But this, I like this Kirkland. It's a very, kind of has a savory flavor. So I'm just going to add that. And we've got our potatoes in there. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of oats. These are just rolled oats. Oats help to lower cholesterol. That is a fact. We've heard that for years. I'm going to that. All right, and then we're going to add a little bit of salt to this, about a teaspoon or so. And this is just the Redmond real salt. It's less processed. All salt is salt. It's all sodium chloride. It'll all raise your blood pressure if you eat too much of it. It's good to lower it in your diet if you possibly can. All right, am I missing anything? I think that's it. So we're just going to take our pastry cutter and just kind of stir this around a little bit, and then we're going to mash it all together. Yes, thank you for asking that question. Great question. The red lentils they cook up much quicker and much softer. So I don't think they would work in this. They would get too soft. I think even if you didn't cook them, the full length, they just break down a lot easier. So they're really great to make like creamy dishes, kind of like Indian. I don't know if you know what lentil dal is. It's an Indian dish, very creamy. You put it over rice. I really love red lentils, but they work in a different way.
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
This says 1 cup dried green lentils. What if they were already cooked? How?
Oh, so we want. So if you were just to buy canned lentils, already cooked. They would be about 2.5 to 3 cups, I think is what it is. Probably more like 3 cups. Good question. By the way, people who eat beans, peas, and lentils tend to have slimmer waistlines. So it helps you to burn, increase fat. I think I mentioned it increases fat burning and decreases fat storage after a meal. And there's this thing called the second meal effect that happens with beans as well. So it decreases the carbohydrates that are absorbed into your body. So, and that happens like the carbohydrates that you're eating in the same meal. you don't absorb as much of those carbohydrates, the sugars, when you're eating the beans, it decreases the amount of sugars that you're absorbing into your body. And that goes on until the next day as well. So if you're going to wake up and have a bagel or some pancakes for breakfast, the absorption of those sugars from those carbohydrates is going to be better and more favorable if you've had beans the night before. Amazing, huh?
I have a question.
Yes?
I have arthritis, and I wouldn't be able to do what you're doing right now for very long. If I were to pulse it a couple of times on the food processor, is it going to cut it too much?
Nope, it would work fine.
Okay.
Yep, it would work fine. Speaking of arthritis, plant foods are all very anti-inflammatory as well. Beans are anti-inflammatory. Onions, garlic, all plant foods are anti-inflammatory. Of course, you've got some that are more so than others. So what we're looking for in this is we want it to stick together when you form it into a ball. So we're just going to kind of mash it a little bit like so, and then roll it, and then mash it. And it's sticking together very finely, perfectly. So that's what we want. And I do have my oven on, so that's good. Okay, so we're just going to set this off to the side. And I think Rob's going to come up and make little patties for me. There's some gloves back there. I'm going to put him to work, right? Okay, we'll move on to our soup.
I can also do some exams if anybody's interested.
Good for a Blue Zone promo with those.
Okay, so moving on to our creamy cauliflower soup. Then we'll get our gravy going here in a minute. In fact, I don't know. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, let's see, hold on one sec. So for our soup, we're going to use in the base of our soup, we're going to use some carrots and some celery. And I'm going to use my chopper, the Vidalia Chop Wizard. If you don't have one of these, you might want to, after this class tonight, you're going to want to go over to Bed Bath & Beyond and get you one. They're about 20 bucks unless you got a coupon, $5 off. And they're the handiest thing ever. So I'm just going to do a cup of celery. And if you place them just right on here, there's a screen. There's a smaller screen than this. It's about a quarter of the size. But if you line these up right, you know, across the blades, you can cut them down a little bit smaller, which I try to do. And it's got a little measuring cup on the side, so you can see if you've got a cup. I've got a cup, so we're good there. Yes?
I got one of those, and after I used it, about the second time I used it, something happened in the bottom, and a big crack went on the bottom.
You know, that's happened to me. You know what you do? You take it back to Bed Bath & Beyond, and they'll give you another one.
Amazon.
You know, Amazon might return them. Bed Bath & Beyond will return them. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Amazon did, possibly. You only used it once or twice?
Yeah, about the second time I used it.
I think you could return them. So yeah, if you order them on Amazon, keep your receipts or whatever. Okay, so with the carrots, you could put the whole carrot in there as long as it was small. The bigger carrots you got to be careful with. But for this, I want a smaller dice, so you do need to cut them first. But I just slice them and then chop. What's that?
Is that a cup also of the carrots?
It'll be about that. Yeah, a cup of celery. So we should have about 2 cups because I got the celery in here already. And we can go a little bit more on the carrots. Carrots are always extra good. And of course, carrots are high in beta carotene, that orange color, which is good for the eyes. Beta carotene is one of like over 600 carotenoid antioxidants. You know, and when you eat your nutrients, beta carotene in a carrot, not only are you getting the beta carotene, you're getting hundreds of other nutrients that will mix with that beta carotene to make it work properly in your body. That's why it's so important to eat whole foods, not supplements, not a vitamin A supplement. We want to get it in the whole food because those nutrients all work together synergistically. All right, so this is going to go into our pot with about 4 cups of water. Turn that heat up a little bit. And then we're going to do some potato. And this one you can use white potato or, where are my potatoes? Or red potato. I just had a bunch of russets, so we're going to do some russets. And one thing great about this chopper that I love, I'll show you in just a second. And notice I'm keeping the skin on. I do organic potatoes, and you can keep the skin on when you're doing organic. Oh, I was going to show you. One thing great about these is you can, I do this with the red potato or white potato, the small ones. But I put the whole thing on there. This is cut, but I like a whole small red potato. I put the whole thing there like that. And then I've got French fries. I put them on a cookie sheet, about 400 degrees, and bake them, and you've got oven fries. So much healthier than your deep fried French fries. Yeah. So I'm just going to cut those down a little bit. Okay.
Redeeming characteristics nutritionally do potatoes have?
What kind of nutrition does potatoes have?
Yeah, I mean, you've gone on about beans or potatoes.
You know, potatoes are high in potassium. We know that, and they've got other nutrients. I'm not real familiar with potato nutrients. I know they're a lower nutrient food. If I have something with potatoes, like when I do mashed potatoes, I add cauliflower to it. I steam cauliflower and blend it up like I'm going to show you tonight with the soup and pour it into my potatoes and mash it because that increases the nutritional value. Yeah, potatoes are good, carbohydrates, good starch, but they're a lower nutrient food. I don't eat a lot of them.
Well, you didn't sound like a big advocate for potatoes.
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot to say about potatoes. They're good for energy. I like to do sweet potatoes more. They're a little bit higher nutrient. All right, and then we're going to throw in our cauliflower, and I've just got the large florets. I just kind of left the florets big, so you don't have to take a lot of time chopping those up or anything. And I'm just going to lay them right on top of the soup like so.
How much cauliflower is that?
Oh, this is a full head. And did I tell you this recipe is on my website? I don't think I told you that. Healthforlifecooking.com. My website is on your recipe sheet, and it's on the soup. The page with soups. How's it coming back there, Rob? You doing good? Excellent.
You can tell which ones are yours and which ones are mine. Let's put it that way. They all taste the same, though.
That's right. Well, and technically, we've got plenty. So, all right. Let's go ahead and put the lid on that. And we're just going to let that come to a boil. This is Dr. Michael Greger with nutritionfacts.org. He's got a video about cooking methods. There are 5 different cooking methods: boiling, sautéing, microwaving, steaming, pressure cooking, I think was another one. They were measuring the nutrient loss in all those ways of cooking, and they were pretty much the same except for the boiling. The boiling, the nutrients, a lot of them were gone, but guess where they were? They were in the water. So one of your best ways to eat your cooked vegetables is in soup form because you're not losing anything. In fact, your carrots and celery, the more you cook them, the more nutrients are bioavailable. Your body absorbs better. So some things are better to have cooked. Beets are one of those things. The more you cook beets, you don't really lose any nutrients. Okay, I'm going to go ahead while I'm thinking about it and chop these green onions up. We're going to add them after we cook these vegetables. And I just realized that I didn't bring peas for this soup. So it's going to be a pealess soup. But we're getting our legumes in our lentil patties, so we'll be okay. I like to do green onions raw, like sprinkle them on my cooked food. Like we're going to cook these a little bit, but I like to, I'll sometimes chop up a green onion and just throw it on top of my cooked soup or casserole or whatever, because the beneficial compounds are stronger when it's raw. In fact, onions have a lot of anti-cancer compounds as well. A study with looking at 10 countries in the European countries show that people who eat the most onions have the least cancers of all types. So kind of like along with the garlic. Okay, we'll just set those aside for now. All right, so our gravy is going to be a cauliflower base. So we're getting lots of cauliflower in tonight. By the way, cauliflower is a cruciferous vegetable. I like to talk about cancer, but that's because the foods, cruciferous vegetables, have powerful effects against cancer. In population study where they increased vegetable amount 20%, cancer rates dropped 20%. When they increased the cruciferous vegetables 20%, cancer rates dropped 40%. So you're getting more, actually I'm going to use that burner. You're getting double the protection with cruciferous vegetables. Your cruciferous vegetables are kale, collards, broccoli, bok choy, arugula, watercress, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, Chinese cabbage. We want to get women who get 1 serving a day cut their risk of breast cancer in half. So if we're getting our mushrooms, our cruciferous vegetables, leafy greens, we're going to be in really good shape.
In the oven?
They will go in the oven. So let's go ahead and put those in. We're going to put these patties in the oven at 350 for about 20 minutes. Let me grab a, we need to, well, I think,
need to move the oven.
you know what, that'll probably be okay.
Put one right underneath.
Yeah. Hopefully those will cook all right.
Timer, how long?
20 minutes.
April, you mentioned at least a couple different foods that have increased resistance to breast cancer, eating a lot of it. Is there any statistics that you know of from the blue zone areas on breast cancer frequency of people that eat these foods versus the United States, where we obviously don't eat it?
I haven't seen any comparisons.
Right.
Well, I've probably seen them, but I haven't paid close enough attention to say, well, yeah, it's this much more or anything like that. But I know the blue zones have the most centenarians, and they eat all these plant foods.
Well, if you think of the guy remember when we talked about the guy from Sardinia, Greece, came to America after the war. He was a painter. He was a 3-pack a day smoker. Got lung cancer at the age of 65 or something like that. Decided to go home and die. He was given 6 months to live. Went back to Caria, Greece, and started eating like he used to eat, and lived to 107. Wow. So
oh, wow.
That doesn't happen very often here. So it makes a significant difference. If you live long enough, typically it's what cancer will take you if heart disease doesn't take you.
Sure.
So what it means is these kinds of diets are preventing cancer and allowing you to live much longer. So
Yeah. Well, you'd think from the numbers that April was quoting on the breast cancer that if you did have the numbers, there would be a significant difference between, say, the West, like the United States, versus the blue zone communities.
Yeah.
Be shocked if it wasn't there. In the
Right.
numbers. Yeah.
Okay, so with our gravy, what we're going to do here is, so the base of our gravy is going to be cauliflower, and I've got some cauliflower steamed already ahead of time. One thing that helps with plant-based cooking, because sometimes it can take a little bit of time. It can take extra time in the kitchen that you may not want to spend. But it's all about kind of being organized and thinking ahead. So if you were going to do this gravy for dinner, maybe you could throw this on in the morning while you're getting ready for work or something, and just get the cauliflower steamed. That way you can just throw it in the blender, blend it up, if you can do little steps ahead of time, it helps, you know, cooking a butternut squash in the morning for a soup that night, you know, so it's already done. This is just something that I did ahead of time. I'm going to just leave that in there for now and go ahead and throw, we got a cup of mushrooms. This is a mushroom gravy. I'm just going to throw my mushrooms in there. And I don't have any oil in my pan. I am going to add a little bit of water. I don't ever cook with oil, any kind of oil ever. Oil is 120 calories of pure 100% fat. It's the highest calorie, lowest nutrient food that we consume. Go home and get your bottle of oil and look on the nutritional value sign, and you'll see that there's really not a whole lot of anything in it. It's, you know, ever since they told us back in the late 80s that olive oil was so good for us and then we eat in a Mediterranean diet, we all started putting olive oil on our food and we've all gotten skinnier, right? And heart disease has gone down, right? No, it hasn't. We've just gotten worse. So something's not quite right with that oil thing. And it's not. A lot of research is showing that you know, all kinds of oils increase risk of heart disease, increase cancer, it increases inflammation throughout the body. You know, they've taken this food, whether it's an avocado or a sunflower seed or wherever the canola oil comes from, they've taken it apart. They've taken that plant apart and they've extracted this oil and left all the fiber behind. That fiber is protective, keeps those oils protected. When you take the oil out, they immediately start to go rancid. You know, just like when you cut an apple open and it starts to turn brown, it immediately starts to oxidize. Any food will do that. As soon as you cut it open, starts to oxidize. Nuts, when you chop nuts, they start to oxidize. That's why at Natural Grocer and places that are conscious about that, they put their nuts in the refrigerator. It keeps them fresh longer. So we don't want to eat oxidized oils that have been sitting on the shelf on the grocery store for who knows how long. Anyway, olive oil tends to slow blood flow, 40% at about 4 hours after consumption. But I don't want you to believe me. I want you to go on my website, and on the front page, I've got about 4 links to 4 different little video clips of 4 different doctors talking about oil and the harmful effects of them.
So you use no oil in cooking?
Nope, never.
So what do you cook your egg in to make sure it's a good Teflon
I don't
pan?
cook eggs.
Okay.
But if I did, I would probably use a non-stick surface pan.
Egg beaters or any substitute?
No, I don't really ever need. I've never needed. There's a substance or a product called Energy Egg Replacer for baking, and I used to use that occasionally, but I don't. I haven't used that for a long time.
Okay, talk to us about the current rage of the Instapot.
I don't really know much about the Instapot. I know it's a great thing and it's a big fad, but I don't use it. I've been cooking.
An article that says it's in Teflon and it molecularly changes something in it, and it's not supposed to be as healthy as the slow cooker.
Oh,
Really?
that's what I use as a slow cooker. I don't know, I've been cooking this way for 30 years, and to change over to an Instapot is just way beyond my...
Since I haven't heard an electric motor going yet, I knew you were
Yeah,
going to have that.
well, that's coming. That's coming. I do have a
we get
Vitamix.
one, do we?
Okay, so I added a little bit of water to my mushrooms. And as you can see, probably, there's a little bit of a broth going on down in there. I'm going to add in my thyme. Thyme as in T-H-Y-M-E. And just let that cook for a little bit. And I'm just going to turn that down and just keep that cooking really slow. And then I'm going to go over here to my motor, to my blender, and we're going to blend up the ingredients, the rest of the ingredients for our gravy. So in our gravy, I want to add a small amount of fats to it. So I'm going to add some seeds. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of sunflower seeds. And you can add, let's see, I want to make sure, yes. You can add cashews. I'm going to do cashews to our cauliflower soup. But to this, I'm going to use some sunflower seeds. These are raw, unsalted. And then I'm going to add some onion powder and garlic powder. Thank you, Rob. And then we're going to put in our cauliflower. Actually, first we're going to put in our nutritional yeast. Who's heard of nutritional yeast? It's high in B vitamins. Some people think it's a good source of B12, but it's really not. I mean, there is little traces of B12 in it. You don't want to rely on it for your B12. Oh, actually, that's not. That's cashews. Okay. Nutritional yeast is a key ingredient in any of your non-dairy cheese recipes. So if you are looking for a non-dairy cheese sauce or a cheese of some kind, you're going to see nutritional yeast in it. And you can buy it at Natural Grocer. I got this at Harmon's. It just kind of has a cheesy flavor, lends a little bit of a cheesy flavor. Now, if you're going to compare it to, you know, straight across cheeses, it's not going to be the same. But I get a lot of people off cheese doing this. And why do I get people off cheese? Because cheese is one of the most unhealthy foods we can eat, increases risk of heart disease. It's full of saturated fat. I'm telling you all kinds of bad news tonight, aren't I? There's a reason it sits in a block on your counter. It's super high in saturated fat. We want to try to get away from it as much as we can. Okay, so I'm going to add my half a head of cauliflower that's already steamed to my blender, along with the cook water. We want to use that little bit of water that I cooked in there with. And I'll probably be adding a little bit more. I don't think there's quite a cup in that.
You mentioned vitamins a bit. Do you take supplemental vitamins, or do you recommend them?
I take a B12. Everyone over the age of 50 should take B12 actually, because we live in such a clean society. We're kind of clean freaks, you know, antibacterial everything. And we don't drink water out of a stream anymore. Luckily, we don't go out to our gardens and pull up vegetables and just eat them. You know, we don't just shake them off and then eat them. We go to the store and we buy them that have been sprayed with pesticides and all kinds of things. So we're not getting B12 from the soil, which is where it comes from. So it's important to take a B12 supplement, especially if you're eating a 100% plant-based diet. Because when you're eating animal products, you are getting a little bit of that from the animal that ate the grass that was in the soil with the dirt. Okay, but if you're not eating animal products, which I'm not, it's very important to supplement. That's the one thing that.
How much in that B12? How many?
500 well, it kind of depends how you take it. If you took it once a week, you could do like a 2,000 once a week, micrograms once a week. If you're doing like a 500, you'd want to do it like every other day. I'm not sure how much a week. I hear people saying all kinds of numbers, and I know like 1,000 a week is good, or 2,000 a week, anyway. Okay, let's see. Let me make sure I've got everything in there with my gravy. I got our cauliflower, we got our nutritional yeast, sunflower seeds, spices, our mushrooms and thyme are in here. So that's all we need. I'm going to go ahead and blend. Now this thing is going to heat up a little bit as you go, so that's always helpful, but we got this going here so we can heat it with this. We're just going to add this to our mushrooms and thyme combination. So we don't have to use any cornstarch. We're using, cauliflower has starch in it, so a little bit of starch in it, and it's going to help that thickening of this gravy. I'm just going to add a little bit more water to this blender and give it a little spin. Kind of clean it off. I don't like to waste anything in there. Does that look good? Creamy. You'd never know that it was cauliflower. One thing great about the I mentioned the cauliflower with the mashed potatoes. That's what I do in the holidays when I'm doing mashed potatoes. In fact, some of you may have been to my holiday class where I did some mashed potatoes with a chicken style gravy. I think I did cauliflower mashed potatoes. It was 2 heads of cauliflower with like 3 pounds of potatoes. Steam that cauliflower, blend it up, pour it into your potatoes. I think I added cashews to it to make it creamy.
Why do you cut the cauliflower with potatoes? Why not just go straight cauliflower?
I don't care for that. I mean, I like it, but to feed my normal family members, you know, normal, I've got to, you know, I got to please the masses. And I love the potatoes with the cauliflower anyway too, but.
I eat it straight. I do it quite often.
Do
but
ya?
I never corrupt it by putting potatoes in it.
Oh, you're a hardcore true blue.
Hey, I was,
yeah,
I
mean,
was
you
the
can-
advocate of olive oil until 5 minutes ago.
Go on my website and look at some of these videos. I mean, I don't like to convince people. I like to send them to the people that convince them. You know, the people with the degrees and stuff.
So obviously you don't like coconut oil.
No, coconut oil is the same thing. Coconut's great. I mean, they've taken the coconut and they've pulled out the oil. And what about all you're losing thousands of micronutrients from that coconut when you throw away that and just eat the oil. I mean, the oil, coconut oil is saturated fat.
I thought it helps the brain.
Yeah, there's no scientific data on that. There's a lot of stories, lots of stories all over the internet about coconut oil and Alzheimer's, but there's nothing in the science. In fact, if you go to PubMed, I encourage you to go to pubmed.org. It's where all the scientific stuff is put online for the public to see. And type in the search engine, coconut oil, and see what you come up with.
What website is that?
PubMed. Might be .com. I'm not sure if it's .com or yeah. In fact, I think one of the videos on my website that I've got on my front page, I think, talks about coconut oil. I think it's Pam Popper. I think I just added it not very long ago. Okay, I think our cauliflower for soup is close to being done. I'm just going to rinse that out really quick.
My family uses the nutritional yeast on popcorn.
Pardon me?
On popcorn, the nutritional yeast, because then you don't miss the salt at all, and it gives it a great flavor. You just flake it on top of the air
Yeah.
pot.
Thank
Put
you
it
for
in a
mentioning that.
salt shaker.
Nutritional yeast on popcorn.
No, it comes with a shaker cake.
That's great. Okay, so our cauliflower, I believe, is nice and tender. So what we're going to do with it is we're going to put it into our blender jar again with, again, we want to add some good fats, which are from nuts, okay? Instead of using cream that's got saturated fat and very few nutrients, we're going to use nuts that are super high in minerals, they're high in protein, they have fiber, lots of, I mean, hundreds, thousands of micronutrients in these nuts that are very good for you. So I'm going to use about 1/3 cup of cashews. Cashews are a really nice, creamy, oh, you can make ice cream with cashews. And I can tell you about that in a minute. Okay, and then we're going to add some, let's see, some Mrs. Dash again. I'm going to go with some Mrs. Dash lemon pepper, and I do about 1 tablespoon of it. This is one of my favorite Mrs. Dashes, the lemon pepper.
Is that your substitute for Kirkland non-salt seasoning?
You know, I would go with the Mrs. Dash onion garlic maybe instead, if you wanted to do that. Let's see, I need a slotted spoon. So I'm just going to scoop out the cauliflower. That's feeling still a little bit like some of those might not be quite done. Oh yeah, they're fine. You want that cauliflower soft. And you can get some of the carrot and celery if you want. I like to keep the cream of this soup a nice white and not an orange tingy color, which is fine. It looks fine, but I like to keep it white. So I want to just pull out the cauliflower. All right. And then what we're going to do, we'll put that on the blender there, and we're going to throw in our green onions. And if I had my peas, we'd put in the peas as well, but I forgot to grab those, so we'll just put those in there.
Would it be about a cup of peas?
Yes. Yep. All right, then we'll just go over here and we're gonna blend our cream up. All right. So this creamy sauce right here is good for anything you want a cream sauce on. If you want to put it over steamed vegetables, a baked potato. I have a no chicken pot pie, vegetable pot pie recipe. And this is the cream base that you put over your vegetables. And then you put it in your casserole, put a crust on top. Really nice. You don't need to put any milk or any cream, anything like that. And just go ahead and pour that in with my soup. Now, as you saw, I poured some of the water from the soup into the blender. The reason I didn't get more water and add more water to my blender besides what was in the soup is I want to make sure I have a nice, thick, creamy soup. If I add too much water, it's going to thin it down too much. So I want to add, if I need more water, I want to add the broth from the soup. And then if I still need more, then I can add more water. I just don't want to blend this soup down too much, or add too much water, to the soup, and thin it down too much. And it can still use a little bit of water, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more. And again, just kind of clean out my blender. Let's see, we got, is that beeping?
I don't think that's beeping. It's kind of a wussy beep.
They've been in there about 20 minutes, so and they need to go a little bit longer. I need to pull them out and flip them over. Oh. So actually, you want to pull those out and set them here on this pan right here. I had some claws right there. Okay, so here's our creamy cauliflower soup. I'm going to actually add some salt to this. Let's get this out of the way for him. So I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt to that. So why I use no salt seasoning and add salt, because then I have control over how much salt that goes in. This is like, I do this soup every session for the Bridge Recovery Center, that place that I do classes for, and they have new guests every time they come in, so I can repeat every time. But I do that recipe, and everybody always loves that. And I have people coming in there that could care less about their diet. They don't want to change their diet. They're very standard American fast food, but that soup always goes over really well. So.
I'm scared to ask this question, but I'm going to anyway.
Please do.
As a butter substitute, what do you think about these powdered things like Molly McButter and Butter Buds and some
Well,
of those other
I don't know. I would say go home and look at the ingredients on the side panel, and I'll bet you could answer that question yourself.
I think the word salt features prominently in that.
Yeah, really high salt. I'm sure there's probably hydrogenated oils, natural flavorings, which I have no clue what natural
But
flavorings
it's
means.
low calorie.
But it's low calorie. Yeah, I wouldn't trust it personally. You know what I like to use in place of butter? Avocado. So good on anything. Anything that you would put butter on, you can put avocado on.
Pop those back in.
Yes, please. Thank you. So yeah, I'm just going to flip these over, and we're going to bake them about another 10 minutes. Let's see. I don't know if I flipped that one over or not. I like Rob's patties. They're a little bit more rough. They look like more. I don't know. I like them. They're not so like.
They're mad.
Yeah, they're more like camping potatoes.
They have character.
They do. Mine are too perfectly round. It's too boring. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Okay, so our soup's done. Okay, so now for our for the best part of the meal, which is our carrot cake, right? Let me just 10 actually. All right. And if you can't do the timer.
Nancy, is he certified to run that machine?
Okay.
Is he what?
Is he certified to run that machine there? Nope. That's what I was wondering.
Okay. What's that?
And can almonds be substituted for most of your recipes that call for walnuts, or is it the texture too different?
Like in the, okay, so actually, is it just walnuts you're allergic to?
I'm not allergic.
Oh.
I just don't like them.
Oh, you know, I don't think you'll notice the flavor or anything because they're going to be ground up. You'll see I'm going to grind them up. But you could use walnuts or almonds don't work as good because they're not as oily. You want an oily nut like a walnut or a pecan. Almonds work good for some things. They usually what they work good for is usually totally different than an almond or pecans or walnuts. Okay, so for our carrot cake, we're going to start off with 1.5 cups of rolled oats. Okay, these are gluten-free in case anybody cares. So we're not using any white flour or even whole wheat flour. And then we're going to put in 1/2 cup of walnuts. And this is our oils, okay? We're using walnuts instead of oil for our cake. And then we want some baking powder and cinnamon. So actually baking powder, baking soda, and cinnamon. 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. And let's see, what else do we got here? I think that's all of our dry ingredients. So we're just going to go ahead and grind this up in the food processor. Right, and so we just want a crumbly texture is all we're looking for here. And then we're going to grab our grater and a bowl. First of all, we're going to add, so we've got our flour and our oils in here, and then we're going to add our sugar. And our sugar, I use dates. This is 1 cup of Diglett Nor pitted dates. You can use any kind of dates you want, about 1 cup. You want to make sure the pits are out, so give them a little bit of a squeeze. And I've got them soaking in 1/2 cup of water. And the soaking is going to help them to grind up much quicker and easier. You want to soak them.
So you're using no refined white
Nope.
cane sugar, right?
Nope.
Okay.
About 95% of my desserts I use dates. Sometimes I use raisins. Sometimes I'll use a little bit of maple syrup, a little bit of molasses, just for the flavor. I've got a maple pecan ice cream where I put a little bit of maple syrup in it to get that mapley flavor. But pretty much 95% of the time I'm using whole food sugars. All the parts are there. Nothing's been taken away. Nothing's been added. It's just all whole food goodness. Okay, and then we want to put in, we want a teaspoon of vanilla. And the water that those dates have been soaking in is pretty much our moisture that we're going to have. And then I'm going to do some apple cider vinegar, and the vinegar combined with the baking powder, baking soda, is going to kind of help this cake rise a little bit. Okay. And then there, I'm just going to grind this up. Let's see, I need to move that out of the way so you guys can see that better. And you just got to kind of work with it just a little bit if you need to. Kind of scrape down the sides. Okay, so from here we want to add some carrots. We want about a cup of grated carrots. And it's usually about 2 small to medium-sized carrots. I don't peel it. They're organic, and if they weren't organic, I'd just wash them really well. Although carrots is probably one of those vegetables that you would want to buy organic just because they're so close to the soil. There's a list called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. Are you guys familiar with that? The Environmental Working Group puts out this list, and it's ewg.org, Environmental Working Group, and they have a little shopping list that you can print out and fold up and put in your wallet or your purse, and it shows the top 12 foods that have the highest pesticide contamination, and then the top 12 that's the lowest. I don't know where carrots fit on that, actually. On that, I'm guessing they're fairly high, just like I said, because the skin's so thin and they're such close contact with the soil. But spinach is really high, red bell peppers are really high, strawberries are like at the top. You don't ever want to eat conventional strawberries, which I know we do a lot of conventional strawberries. Peaches are another one that are high. In fact, I think all your berries are fairly high. Celery's really high.
I heard a rule of thumb from some self-proclaimed guru that the test was if it's a thin-skinned fruit, then buy it organic because it's going to be susceptible to pesticides. Yep. That's a good rule of thumb?
That is a good rule of thumb.
Okay. Well, if you blessed it, then we'll go for it.
I forgot I need to do a little bit of apple here. So we're going to go with a 1/4 cup of apple, which is usually about 1/2 of an apple. And you could do applesauce with this. I tend to not want to buy a whole bottle of applesauce, and because it'll just go to waste because I don't I don't use it that much. Plus I'm kind of a little bit fanatical maybe about using whole foods. I want to use something that's easily accessible. An apple is something that people might have in their cupboard where they may not have a bottle of applesauce. So plus you're getting all the parts of the plant again.
How do you not chew up your hand with that?
Well, I'm very careful about it. Oh, I have come close. There is supposed to be a little screen on there, but I lost it a long time ago, and so I've just gotten used to not having it. That's a really yummy smelling apple. It's a jazz apple, which I have never bought before, but that's just what was.
We lived in New Zealand.
What?
We lived in New Zealand, and that's when we first had the jazz apples, and my friends, that was their favorite. They're
really
very flavorful.
I can just smell it.
Yeah,
it's
very
so,
good.
and it smells
If
sweet.
I find them, that's what I get now.
Okay, so I'm just going to add
Yes.
that 1/4 cup of apple. And again, you can do applesauce. You might even be able to do a few more grated carrots if you didn't have an apple. I bet it would work just fine.
Lynn's has them. Do they?
Oh. All right, and then we're going to add some raisins. 1/2 cup of raisins. And then we're just going to go ahead and very, very carefully, briefly chop. Just pulse it. We don't want to grind those carrots down too much. In fact, I like to get a fork and basically just mainly stir them in manually. And then I'll give them just a little bit of a pulse with the processor. By the way, if you don't have a food processor, you could probably still do this. What you would do, well, you need a blender, but you could do it in your blender. Grind up your oats and your spices and stuff in your blender, and then pour it into a bowl and take your dates and blend them up with your vanilla and vinegar. Pour that in with your dry ingredients, and then put in your carrots and your apples, and just manually stir that in. All right. And then,
Is there a handy dandy conversion chart if you want, if something calls for a half a cup of normal sugar and to put in the equivalent dates or raisins or something?
you know, I usually go, it's been so long since I've converted like a regular recipe. Seems like a cup and a half of dates for a cup of sugar. That doesn't quite seem right. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've done anything like that, so I'm not really sure. There probably is a chart somewhere. Somebody's probably put one out.
Somebody got one somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to move this to my 8x8 cake pan, and I've got some parchment paper in the bottom. Again, I don't need to use any oil. Parchment paper is so great anyway, despite the oil issue. It's so clean, so much easier to clean up. You can go ahead and pull those out, and we'll, in fact, if you want to put those on a plate, and we'll serve here in a minute.
Do you ever get overly focused on calories?
I don't ever look at calories, ever. You don't need to. When you're eating whole food, plant-based, really healthy, super healthy diet, you don't even need to think about calories.
And that doesn't affect your weight
Or fat
adversely?
grams or anything like that. Well, actually,
Or
you
your family, for that
you
matter.
want to be careful with nuts and seeds and avocados. You want to, if you're very active and thin, you can get away with eating more, of course. If you're wanting to lose weight, you got to be really careful with those. It's recommended to get at least a serving 3 or 4 times a week, and a serving is about 1/4 of a cup. So 1/4 of a cup of nuts and seeds, nuts or seeds, is about 175 calories. And
Quarter of a cup a week?
Sorry, like 3 to 4 servings a week.
3 or 4 servings
Yeah.
of the quarter of a cup.
They're very beneficial. They help decrease risk of heart attack. Like walnuts are high in arginine. They keep your blood vessels flexible and elasticy. Just one a plate.
So you really said about a cup of nuts, because 3 or 4 servings of a quarter cup is a cup.
That would be a week, yeah.
Cup a week, yeah.
But again, if you're really active and you're, burning a lot of calories, you could have, a half a cup a day probably, or maybe even a little
But
bit
nuts,
more. You want to make sure we're going to do some gravy on that too. So you want to make sure you're not out of balance. You don't want to be eating even if you can burn those calories, you want to make sure you're filling your diet up with lots of vegetables and fruits and beans and those kind of things.
so being a
You don't-
couch nut eater
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily be a good idea.
Yeah, no. You want to have some good balance there. So if we want to go with a little bit of gravy on those. I don't know if you want to use that for the gravy. And just put a little bit of, we have less people than we thought, so just enough to cover it. All right, so I'm just going to kind of clean down my blade by turning that on for a second. That just gets everything off the blade. What time is it? 7:04. Is that oven still on? Yeah, it is. Okay. So we're going to bake this cake at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. And as you can see, it's not a thin cake batter. A lot of cake batters are, that you can pour. This is more of a very thick batter. In fact, you could do cookies with this instead of the cake. $7.25. Can somebody set their watch for 20 minutes?
20 minutes? Okay.
Okay, we're going to do one more recipe for you. I like to have we're going to do a nice frosting for this cake. And this is going to be a sweet potato based frosting. You're going to love this. I've got one, and it's a white or a yellow, I guess, not a yam, like a yam, what we would call a yam, but we want the lighter colored sweet potato, the white ones. And I just bake them, 400 degrees, 350, 400 degrees, till they pop, till they get really juicy. And I want to measure out a cup. So I'm going to put a cup of the sweet potato in there without the skin. And then I'm going to add 15 dates and a quarter cup of cashews that have been soaked in 3/4 cups of water. Everything's going to be nice and soft, so when you blend it up, it's going to blend really easily. And if you have a strong blender like a Vitamix or a Blendtec, you wouldn't necessarily need to soak them, although it does blend much easier, much quicker. This will heat up before you get it blended really creamy if you're starting with just unsoaked nuts and dates. All right, and then something else I forgot tonight was the lemon. But I had some frosting already that I've got on your cake that's got the lemon in it. This is not going to have the lemon. We're going to put a little bit of vanilla in it, though. And yep, you can go ahead. Actually, yeah, go ahead and send it out. I was going to say we can serve the soup with it, but I want to make sure they get one of those before they get cold.
What about you? That's for you, teacher.
Oh, thank you.
That's delicious.
You like that? Thank you. So here's our cream, nice and thick. You can see how thick that is. And you can just, and again, this you could put on, I think I did, for the holiday class, I did a pumpkin pie. And I think this was I did a Cool Whip or a whipping cream kind of thing, and I think this is what it was, the recipe that I used. But again, usually for this cake, I'll put the lemon juice in it, just to have it a little bit, so it's a sour, more of a lemony frosting, like a sour cream frosting. And you could probably just even put this in a bowl and get a spoon and enjoy a little bit of it.
Please, Lentils, could you make a meatloaf?
Yes, I have a lentil loaf recipe actually.
Oh, okay.
It's a holiday lentil loaf. In fact, did I do it for, I think I did it for your holiday class, maybe.
Maybe we did.
Can't remember.
That's why I was thinking of it.
I did a chickpea loaf for one of them, either community education or this one. And then I did the holiday lentil loaf for the other one.
I think the chickpea loaf.
Was it?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and serve up this soup. So like I said, wherever you're at with your nutrition, I encourage you to take a leap and, well, either take it another step or take a full leap. That's what I really encourage you to do, is take a full leap to 100% plant-based, whole food plant-based for a month. Just give it a month, 2 or 3, even 2 or 3 weeks, and I think you would notice a big difference in how you feel. you know, if you're including a lot of dairy products, that's actually the first thing I tell people to get out of their diet when I'm talking about getting rid of things, I like to talk about what to include. Include your greens, beans, onions, mushrooms. In fact, you've got a handout there about G-bombs. That's what G-bombs are: greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. Those are the 5 most powerful foods to reverse disease. That's the most important thing, getting those into your diet. And then when you're talking about excluding, the first thing that I would get rid of is dairy products. There's a handout about dairy on there. Milk products are made to grow a baby cow, not a full-grown human. And lots of nasty diseases come with eating dairy products. And then, you know, cutting back on your animal-based foods. The more you can, the better. Although there are no populations that have been studied eating 100% plant foods. There's no population in the world, you know, full population that doesn't eat meat, except maybe the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California. But you know, you can get away with having a small amount of meat products that way. You know, 2 or 3 times a week is what's recommended by people who are working with people trying to reverse, you know, chronic illness. There are people that say that, you know, they feel like they have to have their meat, and so they say, you know, okay, 2 or 3 times a week at the most, to reverse and get your health back. But I encourage people just to try 100% for 2 or 3 weeks and just see how you feel, see how you like it. And if you can't do that, then just inch your way in. There's a gal, Kathy Freston, I think she wrote a book called Lean, and she tells you to lean into it. You know, gradually add more of the good stuff and get rid of the bad stuff. And if you're not suffering with any kind of chronic disease, you can totally do that. But if you've got full-blown diabetes, I encourage you to go 100%. Get off that medication, because you don't want the nasty side effects that come with that years down the road. I've got too many diabetics in my family, and I see what that does to your body over time. So, yes.
I know you've suggested several different books, but if you're trying to really switch over to plant-based and you're not sure about all the tastes, and is there just one book you'd recommend to get you to cross over?
Recipe book?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, I have two of my own, but I know besides mine, I know the Forks Over Knives cookbook. Have you seen Forks Over Knives?
No.
Forks Over Knives. That's a documentary I highly recommend if anybody's got any questions about, you know, that's a good way to get yourself convinced. Forks Over Knives or What the Health is another documentary.
Oh, now these are not books.
Right. That just brought my mind to the documentaries. But yes, Forks Over Knives has a cookbook. They've got a whole program. They've got a cooking class. They got cooking classes. They've got cookbooks. They've got groups that you can join and YouTube videos and all kinds of things. So, but yeah, Forks Over Knives cookbook. I think Plant Pure Nation or Plant Pure might be the name of the cookbook. That I think is a really good cookbook. And as far as other cookbooks, those are the only 2 that I hear a lot about. People that come to the potlucks bring stuff from Forks Over Knives, because we ask people to bring recipes, and I see a lot from the Forks Over Knives, Plant Pure. Engine 2 is another, if you've got a husband or a spouse, that's really difficult. Engine 2 diet is really very manly kind of meals. The guy that wrote it and created this whole program is Rip Esselstyn, and he is ripped, I'm telling you. he's a buff dude and is like a triathlete and all that kind of stuff. He's in Forks Over Knives.
You need to watch that documentary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they even have these retreats, Forks Over Knives retreat, where you can go for a week and they cook for you and you hear lectures, and they go to Sedona, Arizona, I know, every year, and they do a big Forks Over Knives or anyway. I call it retreat, but it's not a retreat. Yes.
So you never have a piece of fish or a piece of chicken or anything like that?
I have no desire. It's been, gosh, you know, I've been doing this since 1991, and I just have no desire for it. You know, I've tasted a little bit over the years, some fish, but I remember one time in particular, we went to this really nice restaurant in Idaho, and they didn't really have much variety as far as plant-based stuff. They had the only thing closest was a salad with some salmon on it. And I was sitting there, and I wasn't trying, I wasn't really thinking about it. I thought, oh, I'll have a little bit of salmon. But I found myself eating the salad and like picking around the salmon, and then I just kind of was picking at the salmon at the end of my meal because it was there, and I'm a picker. So But I just don't want it. It just doesn't appeal to me.
If you haven't done any of that since 91, that's like 28 years. That's a long spell, I can understand.
And I'm still alive. And thriving, if I might say. Yes.
My mother, who's 87 years old, has been forks over knives and pretty much on a vegetarian diet for the last 15 years. But recently she was reading that because of muscle loss in older age groups, that the benefit from the plant-based diet diminishes with age.
Really?
That after you pass the 70 mark, you probably need a little more protein just to avoid muscle loss. But
Yeah.
have you heard anything along those lines?
I haven't heard anything about that. It makes me think of the, I don't know if it was somebody in the blue zones, but there was a gentleman that I know, there's a registered dietitian, her name's Brenda Davis, and she does a lecture, and I've heard her tell this story twice, that she went, I think it was maybe one of the blue zones, they went to talk to this man that lived in the blue zones, and they come up to this guy's property, and there's this guy out doing his gardening and stuff, and the guy walks up to him, and he thought it was the son, because it was a father-son deal, and they started talking to the son, and come to find out it was actually the father. And he was, over 100 years old. He's out there working in his garden, and he was I think he was pretty much 100% plant-based. But again, if you feel like if your mom felt like that's something that she needed to add in a few times a week, I don't think it would hurt her. So it would layer well.
It seems like it.
I think it would.
Like for a company situation, bake 2 of them and then put your stuff in the middle and then on top.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I would do is flip it out and put the bottoms together. And that way the centers would be nice and flat, and you could put the frosting between, and yeah. So yeah, there's your carrot cake, and yummy, huh? Did you guys like that? Like the carrot cake? Wonderful, yes.
I got one more angle on this 28 years since you started this. That you just celebrated your 28th birthday because you just haven't aged any since you started on this.
Something like that, yeah.
Well, it's an angle, right?
Yeah. Thank you very much for being here tonight, you guys. I'll be up cleaning up, so if you want to come talk to me, feel free. I'll see you again next semester, and if you can't wait till then, come do a community education class. I'm doing two during the summer. I'm doing one in June 20th and July 31st, both. So if you're here during that time, I'd love to see you. I'm going to do some cool summer salads and fruity, like real seasonal stuff. I love to do lots of salads and things, so would love to see you.
I know.